Welcome, everyone. This is Jill. I am from Cheesetique, and I'm here to guide you through the amazing culinary land of Tuscany, one of the most delicious homes, sources, creators of some of the most esteemed, beloved, delicious cheeses in the entire world. And the wine, oh my gosh, so excited to share this wine with you all tonight. So I want to welcome you to the next in our series of online classes. We have been doing these classes for, oh boy, over a year and a half now, and it's pretty awesome. Very excited to have switched to a Zoom platform, which I think is a little bit more accessible to everyone, and hopefully will give us better results overall. So for those of you that have only
Hold on a second. We got somebody who's not. Give us a thumbs up if you can hear again, because we're hearing from somebody that they can't. Yeah, okay.
Okay, I think that person must just have their volume down. Make sure that your volume is up on your own computer. Okay, can I continue?
Please, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Okay, so as I'm getting older and older, if I get like off my track, there's no telling where I'm going to end up. So
and then I get beaten.
Yes, and then he gets in trouble. So anyway, very excited to take you around Tuscany. We're going to taste some wonderful cheeses. We're going to taste some wonderful wine. As I mentioned, we're on a new platform this time. And so as always, though, the chat is really, really critical to a really fun and interactive session. We did try doing verbal questions last time. I think they were almost more trouble than they were worth to everyone that was involved. We're gonna skip that this time. This time we're just gonna rely on our chat until Jeff and I can find a way to do it a little more seamlessly.
Really me, I wasn't.
Well, it was us. It was just a little bit. I think it was a little, a few too many steps. Anyway, so I'm very, very excited to be moving on here. The chat is really, really fun. It creates this wonderful little community where not only can you submit questions and comments, but you can chat with one another. And it's really, really fun. You get your own little thing going on the side there, which is really cool. As always, my beloved, wonderful, very patient husband, Jeff, is with me in class tonight. And as always, he is on our dashboard. So I can't actually see anyone out there. I can just see my camera, but Jeff is able to see all of your comments and questions coming in through the chat. So he will be popping in periodically during the class to pass along your questions, pass along your comments, and of course, add some interesting comments and questions of his own as is appropriate. Sound good?
I like that, as is appropriate.
As is appropriate.
That sounds like a lesson to me.
And just to get started really, really quick, we have one requested shout out.
Ooh, cool.
Yes, so this is the first time ever, it's really exciting, that we have shipped our class kits. I know we're a little late to the party, like, what? We did it this time and we were super, super excited and people were super into it. So many people did the class and then sent class kits to friends and relatives all over the country. So I think it went really smoothly. We have people everywhere from California to Connecticut to Georgia to Wisconsin, you name it, Colorado. We have people there.
Arkansas, you said, didn't you?
And even Arkansas.
Yeah, pretty neat.
Yes, hello, Arkansas. So we have people literally all over the country from coast to coast watching this class tonight. So thank you all for allowing us to experiment on you this first time with our shipping. I hope that everything arrived in peachy keen condition. One of the folks who lives far away in Texas is a woman named Kathy. And apparently it's Kathy's birthday today. So we are wishing Kathy a very, very happy birthday from Liz. And as always with birthday shout outs, I am going to sing, Kathy. So you might want to mute your computer right now. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kathy in Texas with a K. Not Texas with a K, Kathy with a K. Happy birthday to you. There you go. Wonderful. And that's my shout out for tonight. Happy birthday, Kathy.
Awesome.
And thank you, Liz, for thinking of Kathy.
And Bobby and Jean jumped on and said,
Bobby and Jean.
They wondered if folks were on yesterday because we're normally Wednesday 5:30.
I know. I didn't hear from anyone. So for this whole time, we've always done Wednesday evening classes. We switched to Thursday now so that we can ship our class kits on Mondays. They can arrive safe and sound on Wednesdays, and then we can do the class on Thursdays. So I know there are probably still people that will be like, oh, where are you on Wednesday? But I think they'll figure it out.
And we pushed it to 6. So
and we're doing 6
folks
o'clock.
In the Midwest can be 5.
Exactly.
The California folks. Well, we're
not
going to do it at
3 in the afternoon there. Yes, you doing cheese and wine class at 3 in the afternoon. I think that's pretty awesome. So again, thank you all very much and happy birthday, Kathy. And thank you to everyone who shipped kits and received kits and all that good stuff. So
all right, Jill, I'm ready for the first graphic.
Talking about Tuscany, let's do it. So we are talking about a region in Italy called Tuscany, and Tuscany is very, very famous for being sort of the land of these gorgeous rolling hills and beautiful farmland and ancient forts and castles peppering the landscape. And it really is that picturesque and that gorgeous. It also happens to be the home of some of the most delectable cheeses on earth and some of the most famous and delectable wine on earth. And so we're going to be trying some of both of those today. Jeff, are you putting up my graphic for my map of Tuscany?
I'm trying to, but all these other graphics came up at the same time. So.
Okay, did you do the share screen and then just select graphic 1 and then say share?
Yes.
Okay. Jeff's a little slow on the Zoom uptake, I think. I might be hiring for a new husband soon.
No.
Still no good?
You just keep going. I'll figure this out.
Yeah, I'd like people to see the graphic though. All right, so
we see
you want me to come over and help you, honey? He needs my help. Everyone remember this moment. Jeff needs my help. All right.
You can only go so far.
So, all right, so we're going to share screen, and then we're going to, that's number 3. You see what I'm doing? I can't get, there we go. Okay, 1 second. See what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Right.
All right, so our map of Tuscany should be up now. Thank you all for your patience. Okay, so we have our map of Tuscany, and as you can see, there's a little sort of blow up, or I don't know, a zoom out, I suppose, in the lower left-hand corner that shows you where Tuscany lies with regard to the entire country of Italy. And it's about, give or take upper third, upper half-ish, and all the way on the west coast of Italy. So it's along the ocean there, beautiful, beautiful coastline, and gorgeous, gorgeous landscape. Surprisingly, varied altitude in Tuscany. And so there are some areas that are right at sea level, and then there are some areas that are up to 1,000 and up feet above sea level. So it's known for being these beautiful kind of rolling hills, and can get quite steep. They're quite gorgeous. And what we're looking at here is a sort of a, I don't know, layout, I suppose, of the Chianti wine region, but into the map of Tuscany. So we're going to be referencing this map as we go through the class, and also showing you where those cheeses are coming from. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our wine, because getting started with the wine is always, I think, the most fun part. Jeff, do we have any questions before I get started talking about the wine?
I guess people did see the picture.
Good, excellent.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, perfect. So this is our wine. I know a lot of people, because we were shipping kits without wine, so we have a lot of people out there that did not have the wine, and I sort of feel sorry for you, frankly. We are having here the Castella di Bossie Chianti Classico Reserva Berarda 2016. Has more points than I can even count. This is a super, super, super esteemed winery, very famous for making some of the best Chianti Classico in the entire world, or the entire region of Tuscany, I should say. So the Chianti region of Tuscany is, as you saw in your map there, sort of a smattering of different zones all throughout Tuscany. And Chianti wine, just if you didn't see the Reserva here or Classico, just Chianti wine can be made in various zones all throughout Tuscany. Only once you start calling a wine Chianti Classico is it made in the original borders of the Chianti Classico, is what's called Classico, the original Chianti region, and that is still considered to be the most sort of revered zone. And then you start talking about how long a wine is aged. So if a wine is from Chianti Classico, it is from that sort of central zone there within Tuscany. And then if it is a Reserva, that means it is aged for at least 2 years in barrel before it is bottled. So it's a pretty awesome thing. We'll get a little bit more into the tiers of Chianti in just a moment. But for now, I'm going to pour us some little nips here, because I think we deserve it. Look at that gorgeous, gorgeous color. It's both ruby-like and kind of earthy at the same time. So this wine, Chianti, can be made from various grapes, ranging from the most dominant grape has to be Sangiovese, but it can also include even grapes like Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. But this one happens to be 100% Sangiovese from the Chianti Classico region. And it is from Berarda, which is the most southern zone within Chianti Classico. So the great thing about this winemaker being in the southernmost zone of Chianti Classico is they have almost a special terroir there, a special kind of climate that's a little bit warmer, a little bit more, I don't want to say tropical because it's not like humid, but I would say warmer and sunnier. It has a slightly higher elevation. And so you end up with grapes that are very flavorful and have beautiful fruit development, but also have exceptional acidity, which is one of the hallmarks of the Sangiovese grape. So Sangiovese is a very thin-skinned grape, and even though it can have a lot of flavor and richness, it is known for its peppery qualities, for its herbal qualities, for its leathery qualities. It can have a lot of all of those qualities to it, but because it has a relatively thin skin, its wines tend to be on the more translucent side. So they're not super inky and super dark, and they're not going to knock you in the face with super extreme tannins. And that is one of the reasons that Chianti Classico is considered to be one of the top wines for pairing with food in the entire world. There's a lot going on, a lot of herbs. So it's like you can almost taste the rosemary, you can almost taste the thyme in this wine. And then you've got all of this great sort of earthiness paired with the fruit. And it's just this amazing killer combo. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a scent here. I feel like I'm in the countryside in Tuscany. It definitely smells super herby. I don't know if anyone else is getting that. I'm definitely getting like some oregano, some thyme, and a little bit of the rosemary. And then for sure, I'm getting a nice sort of bright zing in the nose that tells me it's gonna be nice and acidic. Have you tasted yours yet?
I have not.
Do you love it?
Still experiencing the zing.
The zing? Oh, it's so wonderful. Oh my gosh, whose mouth is watering? So if your mouth is watering, there's nothing wrong with you. It means there's everything right with you. Okay, so if you are literally drooling right now, it is because this wine is activating your salivary glands. A high level of acidity in this wine is triggering you to make saliva because it thinks you're gonna feed it. Isn't that cute? Which you are, because you're going to have all these wonderful cheeses. But that is your sort of your salivary system saying, oh, I'm getting ready, food's coming, let's go saliva. And that is what's happening when people say, oh, my mouth is watering. It's literally doing that. And it's going to be a wine like this that is absolutely going to make that happen.
It feels like you made a hypnotic suggestion because
why?
Just because as soon as you said that, my mouth was like, I thought I was going to drool on camera.
Well, again, it's not a long shot. I mean, it really is the response that your mouth is going to have when you taste a wine like this. So Castella de Bossie dates back to the 9th century as a wine estate. So that's the year 800 some odd. And you can show Jeff, if you'd like, the graphic there, graphic number 2, that shows a beautiful picture of the vineyard and with this beautiful castle in the center. And that castle has been around since, I just want to look and get out, since the year 1090. So it's pretty amazing and a pretty historical property.
I am struggling with this screen share. Hold on.
Okay. My poor husband.
No, it's.
So open up the file first and then share it.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yep.
So I'm looking, you asked me to share what now?
It is number 2, please, which should be a beautiful picture of the vineyard with a castle in the center. We're going. So they grow almost all Sangiovese here. And again, because of the warmer climate and the exposure to the sun, their Sangiovese grape is some of the most coveted in the entire country. People are always courting them to try and buy their fruit. And they're like, no, we make our own wine. So it's an absolutely outstanding winemaker. And again, this is a Chianti Classico, which means it comes from the Chianti Classico region in the center of Tuscany. And it is also a Reserva. So Chianti is one of those wines that has tiers, sort of levels of age and production. So the base level is just Chianti, and Chianti has to be aged for 6 months. Then there is, I want to make sure I'm getting my I cannot believe I've lost my, hold on. Oh, here we go. It was on the other page. That's right. So 6 months for regular Chianti. Then we have a Chianti Classico or Superior, which is 1 year. So that's only if it's called Chianti Classico. Okay. And then the Reserva, which is what you're drinking here, has to be aged for at least 2 years. And then there's something called a Grand Superior that has to be aged for 2.5 years. But this one is aged for 2 years in barrel.
So
Yes,
that
sir.
leads to a question that
Sure. I'm going to sip while he's asking.
Sip while I asked this. Lloyd and Marcia asked this a little while ago, and I think you got to it, but their question was, how many types of Chianti are there? Did you did you just identify all the types of Chianti or no?
So this is a great question. This was
Lloyd and Marcia.
Lloyd and Marcia. Okay, it's a great question, Lloyd and Marcia. So the way Chianti works is there's just regular Chianti, and you'll see Chianti on the label. You will also see Chianti Classico, okay? But you also have the ability in Tuscany, within your particular region, to have a Chianti made in your particular region, and you tack your name onto it. So that, for instance, there's Chianti Coltibono, which is like from that town. So there's all sorts. And if we go to that map, can you pull back up the map, Jeff, of Tuscany with the Rhine regions, and you'll see the various regions sort of colored off here. So there's, you got it up?
I do.
Okay. So you'll have, for instance, a Chianti Savana. You'll see all these different little regions here. Chianti Colline Pisane. So all of those will have the village name kind of tucked after the Chianti, which means it has to be made in that particular region. So technically there are dozens of different Chiantis, but in general, it's really the age. It's really whether they tack on that Reserva or that Grand Superior onto the end is going to give you more of an indication of sort of richness of flavor that you can expect and general quality. And if someone is tacking on the name of a town, you have to expect that there is a special terroir that that town identifies and wants people to really know, hey, this is from Lucca. I want people to know that, and so they would put that as part of their name. So Chianti Colli Fiorentini is a special Chianti from that particular zone.
So just to follow up on that with one last point,
sure.
At the bottom of the Chianti region, we saw Montalcino and Montepulciano.
Right.
But sometimes you see those as standalone. They don't say Chianti Montepulciano.
Right. So that's because it's one of the most confusing things in the world. So Montepulciano is a town in Tuscany. So there is a Chianti Montepulciano. There is also a grape called Montepulciano, which is from Abruzzo.
Oh.
So the town Montepulciano is in Tuscany. And so there is a Chianti that is grown with Sangiovese grapes in Montepulciano. But there is also a grape that is called Montepulciano, and it is grown in Abruzzo. And that is when you see the wine Montepulciano di Abruzzo, that's where that wine is from.
Beautiful. All right.
How confusing is that?
Last point on the wine before we get on to the cheese.
And then we're going to get into some cheese here.
Joanna actually makes a good point that I think everybody will find funny.
Please.
And she says when she hears Chianti, she thinks like she doesn't say the 70s or the 80s, but that's when I remember it, the straw bottles. What's going on with the straw wrapped bottles of wine?
Absolutely. So Chianti is by far the most famous wine that comes out of Italy. And it is considered very approachable price point wise. So it's nothing like a Brunello, for instance, or a Barbera up from the Piedmont area, or Barolo from Piedmont. Chianti is a fairly large region within Italy. And so there's a lot of fluctuation in accessibility of the wines and price point of the wines. And so it is the most popular style of wine coming out of Italy is Chianti. So it was one of the first that was being widely exported all over the world. It was one of the first first Italian wines that Americans could really get their hands on, and certainly at an approachable price point. And so Chianti became known as sort of the red sauce Italian restaurant wine. And that's why, just because they make tons of it. The region is fairly large and it's fairly accessible price point wise. It's only once you start getting up into the Reserva and the Grand Superior that you're really talking higher price points with these wines. And so that's why people associate it with kind of sitting down at the Italian restaurant and getting a bottle of Chianti. But really it's because Chianti is so ubiquitous and everybody loves it because it's so delicious and it goes with food so beautifully. And so it's like this beautiful marriage is really the main reason for that. But it definitely has that association.
And Maya thinks of Silence of the Lambs.
I ate his liver.
Yes.
fava beans. Nice Chianti. Didn't he do something weird like at the end of that?
He did do that, Joe.
Although it was one of the very many weird things.
Yeah, he that wasn't like
that he did.
The sum of his weirdness.
Okay, so what I will tell you, last question, because people will
Cheese.
always ask this, is about aging of this wine. This one is around for the long term. So you can drink this one. It's beautiful now, and it will keep for another 8 or 9 years in peak, beautiful, beautiful condition. So if you want to get more bottles of this while we have it, get them, lay it down, and you could drink one a year for the next 10 years. And
all right, I'm putting up the cheese map.
All right, so getting back to our maps, you'll recognize this map. The difference is that we have superimposed now the numbers of your cheeses onto the map. So you can get a sense of where your cheeses are coming from relative to the various zones within Tuscany. So our first cheese is perhaps the most renowned style of cheese or sheep's milk cheese, I should say, in Italy. So pecorino, the word pecorino simply means sheep's milk cheese in Italian. There are literally hundreds of pecorinos throughout Italy. A lot of people, when they hear the word pecorino, they immediately think of a very famous and delicious cheese called Pecorino Romano, which is produced near Rome. And Pecorino Romano is not these cheeses. Just to be very clear, for those of you that have had Pecorino Romano, you will know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, I'll explain a little bit. Pecorino Romano is famous for being essentially immortal. The cheese has been around since Roman times and used to be given to the soldiers to put in their pack because it required no preservation or refrigeration of any kind. The main reason it would last forever and soldiers could put it in their pack and march for hundreds and hundreds of miles is because it's so high in salt content that it would literally never spoil. So Pecorino Romano is absolutely delicious, and it is a wonderful, wonderful cooking and grating cheese. So if you've ever had a dish called cacio e pepe, that is made with Pecorino Romano. It's very flavorful, very salty. If you're cooking with Pecorino Romano, don't salt your food until you taste it with the Pecorino Romano because it adds such a savory quality. So it is very famous for being very salty. And a lot of people will therefore say, oh, it's not really a table cheese. It's not really an eating cheese. It's really more of a cooking cheese, a shredding cheese. Pecorino Toscano, which are pecorinos made in Tuscany, are a different animal altogether. They are known for their subtle sweetness, for their delicacy, for their rich sort of fatty qualities, and for their infinite eating opportunities. So these are cheeses that, sure, you can grate these on top of your food. You can substitute your Parmigiano Reggiano for a beautiful piece of aged pecorino here, but they're incredible straight eating cheeses. So if you are thinking of pecorino as being Pecorino Romano, you're super, super in for a treat because you're about to enjoy some of the most flavorful and yet elegant and subtle styles of cheeses. And these are the Pecorino Toscano cheeses.
And 4 of them are pecorinos or all 5?
These are they're all sheep's milk cheeses. Our 5th one has a little bit of cow's milk in it as well to give it a little bit of extra creaminess. But you can think of these all as being pecorino cheeses, yes. So our first one is made in a region called Pienza. And Jeff, if you want to put up our graphic there, number 4, which is, again, Pienza being one of the most ancient towns in all of Tuscany. It's shown in photographs all the time. It has the beautiful old buildings up on the hill. So Pecorino Pienza is considered to be sort of the primo finest example of Pecorino Toscano, of course, Pienza being within Tuscany. So this is a Pecorino Toscano, but it's really even more selective than that. So I'm going to draw a parallel here. So it would be like Pecorino Toscano might be like Chianti wine, but Chianti Classico, coming from this little tiny or relatively small region within the center of Chianti, is going to be that much more coveted. And Pecorino De Pienza is the same way. So Pienza is a little town within Tuscany. So technically it's a Tuscan Pecorino, but it's from the town of Pienza, which, and this cheese has been made for over 2,000 years.
2,000?
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it truly is. When you eat cheeses like this, it's like you're tasting history, truly. And Pienza historically was written about by Pliny the Elder, wrote about the cheeses of Pienza and being worth traveling halfway across the world to get the cheeses from Pienza. And he was talking about this cheese. It's kind of moving when you think about it. So This is Pecorino Di Pienza and what's called a fresca version, a relatively young version. This cheese is only aged for about 30 days. So I love to pick up cheeses and touch them and smell them and all of this stuff. I think you've probably seen me do this 1,000 times. But to me, cheese is not just about shoving a piece in your mouth and it tasting good. It's really about the entire sensory experience here. So it's the heft of it. It's the feel of it in your hand. It's that aroma. Oh, now if you smell this, it smells like fresh butter, like a creamy butter, and a little bit savory and a little bit fruity. It's one of the most just seductive and wonderful smells just ever. It's absolutely beautiful. So this cheese, again, is only aged for about 30 days. So you get this beautiful bounce, this beautiful pliable texture, and in slices just like butter. Absolutely gorgeous. I think I have to share this with Jeff or he would be sad.
We're getting a couple questions.
Please ask away.
Okay, so Andrew Woodson asks, is it common that Italian cheeses are sheep rather than cow or goat? Yeah.
As I'm chewing, excuse me. Yes, Andrew. So there are lots and lots and lots of sheep in Italy. One of the main reasons for this is very hot and very dry. And it lends itself very well to sheep who can live in very hot, dry climates. They don't require a lot of green grass to roam on. They're relatively small little critters. They can roam from place to place very easily. They can navigate on difficult terrain very easily. So they work really, really well in Tuscany, that's famous for its kind of craggy, hilly terrain, and famous for its dryness as well as its heat sometimes. Now, as you get to the far north of Italy, that's where you really start to see cow's milk take over. So in mid to southern Italy, it's almost all sheep's milk. There's some goat around there, but it's almost all sheep. And it's really once you get to sort of the upper portions and the northern part of Italy where, again, cow's milk really takes over. So famous cheeses like Taleggio from the Lombardy region of Italy, that's cow's milk. Parmigiano Reggiano, of course, is cow's milk. That's from Emilia-Romagna, which is from not super far from Tuscany, but a little bit off to the side there. So but predominantly, certainly in Tuscany, it's all about the sheep, for sure. And it has a lot to do just with the climate there, and sheep just tend to work really well in that climate. Cows need lots and lots of green pasture, and they don't roam as well as sheep do. You can't just round up your cows and hop on to the next little area. They need a lot more logistical support, I suppose, but they're huge.
All right, so Lloyd and Marcia, they thought it tastes a little acidic.
You might get a little bit of acidity from this. It's a relatively young cheese, so you're going to get a lactic quality. You're going to get sort of a sour cream kind of thing going on. As the cheeses age, you get more and more sweetness from the pecorinos. And so it's going to be a super fascinating experiment for all of you.
Tart, sour. We're getting a couple. Bobby and Jean said tart.
For sure. Yep.
Angela, sour. So there's your sour cream.
And that's totally normal for a younger style cheese like this. We're going to, after the 30-day, we're going to be tasting so we've got a 1 month, we're going to be tasting a 3 month and then a 6 month. And you will see that over the months of aging, how the flavors mellow and sort of become more complex and interesting. So it's really, really fun.
Say that one more time, because that orients us for the rest of the class. I didn't catch it.
No, please.
We're going through the ages of the cheeses.
Yeah, so there's going to be different ages that we're experimenting with here. So again, this is the youngest, and this one is aged for 1 month. So again, you're getting sort of a fresh tart experience for this. It should remind you a little bit of almost like a sour cream type of experience. Then we're going to be moving on to a 3 month and then a 6 month. And they're essentially, the same cheese, but aging for longer periods of time. And you can tell just by looking at them, the visual is different cheese to cheese. But you will also find that the texture is going to be very different and the flavor is going to be sort of different as you go through.
All right. 2 more audience questions.
Please ask away.
Rick and Sonia, I think they're basically answering the question themselves, but they say you can't really grate this, can you? So
this is not a grating cheese. No. So it will be a great melter. So you could grate this on a large grater. So you would not want to do this on one of your little, like if you've got one of these guys at home, this is not what you want to grate this on. You could grate this on a box grater that has a very large, sort of a coarser size. You could grate it on it because it's very soft. And if it's cold, you'll have an easier time grating it. And it will give a really, really nice flavor, and it'll melt beautifully because the moisture is really, really nice in this.
All right.
No, this is not going to be something you're going to fine grate on top of pasta necessarily.
Okay, back to the animals for a second. Mark and Teresa asked about the buffalo, which people think of Italy now, the buffalo mozzarella.
Sure. So Mark and Teresa, this is a great question. So Italy is famous for one specific cheese called buffalo mozzarella, which is not made in Buffalo, New York. It is traditionally made in southern Italy in the Campania region. And it is made from the milk of water buffalo, which actually were native to northern Africa and were in a sense imported from northern Africa to southern Italy back in Roman times. And so they're not even native to Italy, but now have become so sort of associated with southern Italy and the fresh buffalo mozzarella that is made from their milk, which is absolutely unbelievable and outstanding. There are not a lot of buffalo elsewhere. So buffalo, water buffalo, like cows, they're very large. They need a lot of land, and they're really intended to be kind of beasts of burden, so to speak, and they can do dairy as well, but they're not going to be as nimble as your sheep. And they're certainly not going to do as well living in the very hot and dry climates as you get further into Tuscany. Any other questions, John?
Sarah has a comment about the wine and the cheese pairing, and she thinks they work really well together. So do you want to comment on that at all?
For sure. This is a great segue. Thank you, Sarah. So let's test tasting our wine with our cheese. If you don't have the wine at home, that's totally cool. Eat the cheese. I'm going to take just 2 seconds and do this. So when you're really trying to taste the essence of the wine with the essence of the cheese, the two should really highlight one another, and they should amplify all that is good in one another. So the way that we want to do that is first, we're going to take a sip of our wine and really allow it to coat our palate. We're then going to take a bite of the cheese and chew that a little bit, really appreciate and savor. And then we're going to finish off by taking another small sip of the wine. And that should really allow the palate to be cleansed a little bit and allow us to really take in all of the flavors and the essence of the cheese. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'll take a sip of my wine. Oh, it's even better now than it was a few minutes ago. Oh, that's good. Okay, bite of cheese. So creamy. It is just coating the palate. Oh my gosh. Another sip. Oh, that's good. That's lovely.
You know what? I didn't get a piece of the cheese because I was asking. Oh, shoot.
I'm sorry. Did you say something?
No, I mumbled.
Here, I'll give you some of the cheese. There you go.
Oh, wow. That's a...
You know what, babe?
Piece
What's
fit
mine
for
is
a
yours.
king.
Okay. So that was our Pecorino Pienza Fresca. Now, there are Pecorino Di Pienza that are aged longer than this. This just happens to be a relatively fresh version, because I, again, wanted to illustrate for you what age will do to these cheeses as we proceed through. But you will find Pecorino Pienza that is 3 months old, and that is 6 months old, and a year old, or 9 months old. They're all Pecorino Di Pienza is not young and fresh like this. This is just one wonderful example.
The olive paste, is that Natasha?
So this is not Natasha. This is a black olive tapenade. And it is just sort of minced up black olives with extra olive oil and a little bit of salt. And it's absolutely outstanding. It's a fun reminder that a lot of times we will do sweet condiments with our cheese boards, because the sweet and the savory are just so harmonious together. But with cheeses like this, and with lots of cheeses, it's fun to experiment with savory accompaniments, whether it be olive paste like this, salted nuts, pickles, pickled vegetables. All of those things can also be really, really delicious. And so an olive paste is just a very traditional. Tuscany is known for its olive production and its olive oil production. So I just thought, why not do a beautiful
people liked it a lot.
Paste. Isn't that nice?
With the wine too. So
it's really great.
All right, I'm ready for the next.
Are you ready? Are we ready for cheese number 2?
I had
Let's do it.
Time to prepare for the graphic.
Oh, I'm so glad, honey. Okay.
So
look at you beating me to the punch. I love it. He can be taught. All right. So we're on to cheese number 2, still a Pecorino Toscano. And this one is aged for 3 months. So again, if we compare our 1 month Pecorino Di Pienza to our 3 month, you can see a difference immediately in color. So you see a deeper color, you see a more dense, kind of firm looking texture. And if yours is anything like mine, it might be getting a little bit of a sheen on top, which is simply the oil. I think you can maybe see, try and get it in the light here, but you can see a little bit of the sheen on the cheese, which is just the oils kind of lifting up and separating out of the cheese. If you're ever having, a party and you have your cheese out and it's starting to what I call sweat, simply take a paper towel and just dab it off.
Doesn't sound classy.
It doesn't sound classy, but just
Sorry.
dab it off, and it will, you'll get some of that sweating to come off. But it's just the oils in the cheese kind of rising to the surface. So this is a cheese produced by Il Forteto, who is a super, super famous and beloved, but very small cooperative. And by cooperative, we simply mean that there's lots of farmers, all of whom have their own herd of sheep. So if each individual farmer with their dozens of sheep tried to also, on the move, make cheese and age cheese, it would be practically impossible. So instead, what happens is you get all of these sheep farmers who collect the milk from their critters and bring it to this cooperative that then makes the cheese. So it's a really small group, and they basically all blend their milk together, but they're all very close by, and then they make this cheese. So
and they all
neat.
own a little bit of the cheese factory?
Mm-hmm. Huh. Yeah.
And do they take turns making the cheese?
No,
or there's like somebody who's in charge?
Yes. So it's very difficult to both raise the animals and care for the animals and effectively and efficiently collect their milk in a sort of safe and quick way, and to make the cheese. So raising the animals, collecting the milk, making the cheese, and then aging the cheese are four huge and relatively not independent, but pretty unique processes. And so it's very rare. One of our cheeses here today is a Farmstead cheese, but Farmstead is the term that's used for this in the cheese world, which means the animals live on the same property where the cheese is made. So the milking happens there, the animals are cared for there, the cheese is made there, the whole shebang. One of these, the Pecorino Gestato, is a Farmstead cheese, but it's very, very rare because it's hard to have one group that has all of those capabilities and all of the, there's a lot of equipment that's involved, there's a lot of science that's involved, and then there's a lot of land that's involved. So it's rare to have somebody who kind of encompasses all of those things. So in this case, you have all of your farmers caring for their sheep, and then their milk is collected together, and then there's the central place that makes the cheese and ages the cheese from their milk. It's pretty cool. So this is an example. I don't know if anyone else got one. I got a great piece of this here. This, you can see actually the brand. So Pecorino Toscano is hyper name protected cheese in Italy. It has its own what's called a PDO, a protected domain of origin, which means it has to be made in a certain area. It has to be made a certain way. And this one, as you can see, it's actually each cheese gets branded with its identifying sort of marks. And my piece has the brand on the outside. Did anyone else get a brand on the outside?
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So this is a Pecorino Toscano that is aged for 3 months. So we're going to go ahead and take a slice of this. And again, right away, you can tell the texture on this one is more firm, but it still has this incredibly rich and sort of like succulent looking.
Lloyd and Marcia, I think, ate all of it like 4 minutes ago. They said it's just great.
It's so good. So again, the aroma on this compared to this one smells creamy and lactic, like sour cream. This one smells like delicious, nutty, buttery goodness. I have to give you a piece of this, don't I?
But this is still not the most age.
Oh, no. This is just 3 months. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take a taste of this puppy.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Oh, man. Outstanding. Super nutty. Definitely has a creaminess to it, even though it's firm. Coats the palate. I'm gonna taste it with my Chianti Classico Reserva. Winner, Chianti dinner. Fabulous. I hope what you're noticing when you taste the cheese followed by a sip of the wine is not only do the flavors just explode in your mouth, but your palate should feel nice and clean afterward. And that's a lot of what the acidity in this wine is going to accomplish for you. It will make it such that each bite of cheese tastes fresh and new. Otherwise, these cheeses are supremely high in fat. They're very rich, and it would literally coat your tongue and coat the rest of your palate and almost obscure the flavors that would come from your future bites. So having something acidic on hand, which can be wine, it can be fresh grapes, it can be dried fruit, it can be all sorts of things. Pickles, if you're into pickles, you got to have something acidic that's going to help to cleanse that palate in between bites, or very soon you'll just be getting all texture and very limited flavor. Any other questions?
Now, when I brought the wine to just started to bring it to my mouth, nose, it's like my mouth started to water.
Just the smell of it?
No, I mean, just the movement of the wine towards me. I'm like Pavlov's dog on steroids.
I love it.
Okay, but we have a question here.
Ask away.
Oh, actually, it's more of a comment, but I want to relay it to you from Peter Quantock.
Hello, Peter.
So Peter says, Podere il Casale in Pienza. Are you familiar with them?
It sounds familiar. But...
Okay, so he said they have this sort of vertically integrated. It sounds like they're artisans, but they raise their own sheep. They grow their own feed.
Wow.
They make their own cheese, the whole thing. He doesn't know if they export, but I don't know if
that is actually amazing to grow their own feed as well. That's huge. And we have a cheesemaker just like that actually in Virginia, of all places, in Galax, Virginia, called Meadow Creek. They make a cheese called Appalachian. They make Grayson. They make Mountaineer. And one of the great things about them is they do everything from growing the feed, growing the pastures and maintaining the pastures for the cows, to caring for the cows, to milking them, to making the cheese, to aging the cheese, all within one family and on one property. But that's uber, uber rare. Any other questions or comments from the group before we shift on to our next cheese?
No.
No? Okay. Perfect. So,
although I'm not ready with the graphic.
Well, that's okay.
No.
All right. So Pecorino Toscano, as we spoke about, is a style of cheese. There are dozens and dozens of different Pecorinos, even from Tuscany. Pecorino Toscano is the third most common produced sheep's milk cheese in all of Italy. The first being Pecorino Romano, the cheese that we spoke about earlier. And the second being a cheese called Pecorino Sardo, which is a Pecorino from Sardinia, which is again going to have a pretty salty body, which is a lot of the reason that when people hear the word Pecorino, they think, oh, isn't that one of those really salty cheeses? So super excited to be trying the ones tonight that are so mellow and sweet and delicious. Are we ready, Jeff?
I've got the graphic up.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. So we're moving on again from our very squashy Pienza, which was a month old, to our 3-month, which obviously exhibited a firmer texture and a more sort of deep and rich flavor. We're now moving on to our Pecorino 6 months instead of just the 3 months. So right away, I can tell, slicing with my knife, I'm using kind of a soft cheese knife here, but it is much, much firmer to cut through. I'm going to give you your piece of this. And again, this more aged style, I'm getting that nice little sheen of oil on the surface of my cheese. This is a Pecorino that is aged for 6 months. It is made by a different cooperative called Monciano. That is slightly larger than Il Forteto. This one has about 250 sheep herders as their members, which is still, I mean, it's not that much. But,
really?
I mean,
how many sheep does a sheep herder have?
I don't know, I think they probably overall have a couple thousand between them.
Overall?
Yeah. I mean,
but that would mean
a dozen sheep.
Oh, really? That's small. Yeah. Well, the pictures you have are sort of...
Well, they're supposed to be the most romantic versions. Anyway, this is the Pecorino Toscano 6 month from Monciano.
Wonderful.
Oh my gosh. So for those of you who are fans of Parmigiano Reggiano and you love all the sweet, savory qualities that cheese possesses, if you take a sniff of this, it will remind you of Parmigiano Reggiano. So it has a little bit of that butterscotchiness, a little bit of that caramelly quality. This would be a beautiful, beautiful cheese to use as an alternative to Parmigiano Reggiano if you are grating on top of food. So a lot of people assume it always has to be Parmesan cheese that you're grating on top of something. There are so many amazing alternatives that you can use. We often will even use things like super aged Gouda to grate on top of our food that add a little bit more of a sweetness, a little bit more of a caramelly quality to our foods. Certainly if we're doing something like a pasta with a brown butter sage sauce, like a pumpkin ravioli, for instance, doing a beautiful super aged Gouda shredded on top of that instead of Parmigiano Reggiano, which you might think of, it's like transformative. So always kind of be thinking there, what different cheeses can I use in these circumstances? And this would be a great one to consider. Again, this is a Pecorino Toscano 6 month. Go ahead and take a taste of this one.
How about the rinds? Are we eating the rinds on all these or none of these? Or It's really good. You can comment on the cheese and answer the question.
I have to chew and I have to taste my slime.
Actually, maybe I should talk while you're chewing and tasting.
That's magical. That's magical together. Okay, so what was the question?
Rinds.
Yes. So a lot of times these pecorinos will have a wax coating on the outside. So I would say you would want to avoid the rinds on most of the cheeses. Anytime you have wax on the outside of a cheese, you want to avoid that. It's not going to harm you, but you don't want to eat wax, basically. It's not going to bring a whole lot to the cheese. So honestly, for all of these, I would skip. If you want to eat the rind on the next one, you can try it. This one doesn't have wax on the outside. It just has a natural rind. So you can certainly give that one a try and see if you feel that it adds flavor and texture to the cheese. The basic rule of rind eating is that for the vast majority of cheeses, eat the rind. They will add texture, they will add flavor. Now, whether it is a texture and a flavor that you enjoy is a different story. So you may taste the rind on a cheese and say, that's not for me, and you don't eat any more of it. But you should always try it. There are only a few exceptions. Again, if something is coated in wax, if something is coated in paper, or large like sycamore leaves or syrah leaves, things like that, you would not want to eat those. But other than that, you're pretty good to go. And practically every soft cheese on earth, you should definitely eat the rind on it, because the rind is not just a covering for the cheese. It is the cheese. It's part of the cheese. So you want to incorporate that into your eating. What questions do we have,
Okay, so this
Jeff?
is interesting.
Yeah.
Under the Tuscan sheep says they think this has
great.
a bit of an ammonia smell to it.
Really?
Well, it's interesting to me that they would
Smells
say
like lanolin.
lanolin.
No, ammonia. No, ammonia is.
Because when cheese smells like ammonia, it seems like to me like it's always a soft ripened cheese. I've never smelled.
Not usually.
Yeah.
An ammonia smell is usually an indicator of a cheese that has passed.
But this would age and age and
yeah.
age, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you smell the rind, but it has more of a lanolin smell to it. I don't get ammonia on this one.
Mm-hmm. I don't
It's
either.
interesting. I don't get that. Sorry, who was that?
Under the Tuscan sheep.
Under the Tuscan cheese. I'm sorry, under the
Sheep.
Tuscan sheep.
Sheep.
I don't get ammonia on that one. I don't know what to say. I don't know if anyone else is getting ammonia on that one. On a hard cheese, you will almost never encounter that.
Yeah, that's what seemed interesting, different.
Yeah. But that's interesting.
They're Googling lanolin. Lanolin is like what you put on leather to make it soft.
It's like a moisturizer.
Right?
Yeah, it's like a sheep oil. It's the unique oils that sheep emit.
Oh, so that's why you would think it would smell like the oils that sheep.
They're fat. It's like their fat in the milk is what's on the surface. If you rub your finger on the rind of this Pecorino 6 month, it's slick with oil. And if you smell it, it smells like lanolin, which is like the sheep.
You can buy, people sell like lanolin for moisturizing purposes.
There's in body cream too, lanolin.
But also for like leather and other materials.
It's very moisturizing. As you can see, it's got good oils going on. All right.
So maybe that's what it is. All right. Interesting.
So again, this was our 6 month Pecorino Toscano. I hope everyone loves this one. This is a very, very special and delicious cheese. Super loving that. Can't wait to finish that one later tonight. What other questions do we have right now while I pour myself some more wine, selfishly?
I was trying to get ahead of things and get the
You can get a graphic up. That's fine.
All right, let's see. Dave. Oh, yeah. So Dave, the farmer, farmer as a child.
Former.
It's like there's the future farmers of America, and maybe there's the former farmers of America. It's like, okay, sorry. When you shear sheep, your hands become covered in lanolin. Yeah.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Thank you, Dave. That is true.
Good.
Yes. Okay. Are we ready to move on to our most artisan-y, super food-tastic Pecorino Gestato? Shall we?
Let's do it.
So Pecorino Toscano, as I mentioned earlier, has a DOP or domain of protected. It just means that there's laws about how the cheese can be produced, what milk it can be produced from. It has to be pasteurized. It has to use animal rennet. It has to be made from sheep's milk, 100% sheep's milk, et cetera, et cetera. So there's certain rules about this. So this is a cheese called Pecorino Gestato, which technically cannot call itself a Pecorino Toscano because it is in fact made from unpasteurized sheep's milk, which means the milk itself is not pasteurized or thermized before it is turned into cheese. So Pecorino Gestato is the example of a cheese we spoke about earlier that is completely farmstead. So they raise the animals, they milk the animals, and they make and age the cheese right on the same property, which is really, really cool. So Also, the fact of it being an unpasteurized pecorino, when I say it sets it apart, I mean, I could count on, I don't know, probably 2 fingers, the number of unpasteurized pecorinos that there are in Italy. And this producer makes 2 of them.
So
it's pretty amazing.
Why is that though? Why aren't there more?
So making raw milk cheese is harder than making a pasteurized cheese. It is, it requires more care, more protection, more preservation before it gets turned into cheese. Because when we pasteurize, we kill all the bacteria within the milk. So it allows the milk to have a longer shelf life. You can wait a little longer before you turn it into cheese. Once you do turn it into cheese, it has a longer shelf life. So if you're going to be exporting your cheeses to different places, you want pasteurized, well, you don't want it, but it helps to be pasteurized because your cheeses will last longer in transport. There's lots of reasons that people like pasteurizing their cheeses. So an unpasteurized cheese is it's harder to do. It's harder to do it well, and you don't get as long of a shelf life in your milk or in your cheese. So it's just less common. And if you're making, and you want to call your cheese a Pecorino Toscano, it has to be made from pasteurized milk. So you don't really have the option. You couldn't call it Pecorino Toscano if it was unpasteurized.
All right. So go back to that first one though.
Sure.
The Pecorino Pienza Fresca. That one was not pasteurized 2,000 years ago, was it?
No.
But
no.
it is today.
It is today, yes. So the rules about these cheeses are relatively recent compared to the origins of these cheeses. So as Jeff just pointed out, this Pecorino Di Pienza has been made for 2,000 years. They were not pasteurizing 2,000 years ago. So these cheese, Pecorino Toscano, I think got its DOP in 1970 something or 80 something. So it's only relatively recently in the history of these cheeses that these rules about production have come out. And they're usually associated with cheeses that take a lot of pride in their place of origin. And they don't want just anyone to be able to make a cheese and call it that. So they don't want somebody, I don't know, in Lombardy making a cheese like this and calling it Pecorino Toscano, because it's not from Tuscany. It doesn't have that same terroir, that same environment, those same reflective flavors. So it's the same reasons in the wine world that you can't just make a wine in Northern California and call it a Chianti. It's illegal to do that. So there are other very famous cheeses that take advantage of this PDO designation, cheeses like Stilton, cheeses like Gorgonzola, cheeses like Parmigiano Reggiano. If you try to make a cheese and call it Parmigiano Reggiano, they would end you. So they take it very, very seriously, but the PDO system is relatively recent as sort of knowledge of cheese making, and sort of all information is just shared more freely, I suppose. So no, this cheese has not been pasteurized for 2,000 years, but now they have to be. And there's a great story about this, actually. We did a British cheese class months and months ago now. And there's a very famous cheese called Stilton, so Stilton is the most famous English blue cheese, one of the most famous blue cheeses in the world. And it used to be unpasteurized. And then they started pasteurizing it. And then because it was just easier to do that, easier to make it. And then they passed the PDO designation for it, which said that Stilton has to be made from pasteurized cow's milk. So then a gentleman came along and said, well, now I want to make a Stilton from unpasteurized cow's milk, the way that it used to be for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And they said to him, you can't make a Stilton that is made from raw milk, because you just can't, it's illegal. And you can't call it Stilton. So instead he called it Stilton. It's one of the best blue cheeses in the world, made from unpasteurized cow's milk, but they take the name protections very, very seriously. With that, can we taste some Pecorino Gestato?
Let's do it.
Okay. So Pecorino Gestato, as I mentioned, super duper farmstead cheese. And by farmstead, I mean that, again, the animals are raised on the same property where the milk is collected, obviously, and the cheese is made. They also use a very special technique when preparing this cheese, where they keep the cheese at a slightly lower temperature, or the milk, I should say, at a slightly lower temperature. And then the young cheese is kept at a slightly lower temperature that allows the curing process to almost be drawn out further. And it creates this really unique, cool texture. Don't laugh. It feels shaggy. I don't know if anyone else is. So if you cut a slice of this and you run your finger along it, you still have some of yours left.
Yeah.
Do you see how it feels shaggy? and sort of velvety. And that's this unique texture that they've achieved by manipulating the temperature of the cheese when they're making it. It's a super, super cool thing.
Amy and Mark say,
oh, that is so delicious.
They're surprised. It's not salty at all. It's like peppery.
Yeah, that's one of the best cheeses I've ever had. Hands down. It tastes like garlic.
Mm-hmm.
Now you would think there's garlic in this.
Definitely.
It is so herbal. And that texture, like I said, it's like a shaggy, fluffy texture.
Now, is this a cheese that we've carried in Cheesetique for years and years, or is this got it in for this Tuscany class?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This was a special acquisition. So super, super special cheese. Super tiny production. Arrived to us in a box.
Yeah, Angela says a little bitter, but it's
bitter.
It's not bitter like.
It's almost like a minerally thing.
Yeah.
I can see what you're saying, Angela.
And I haven't tasted the rind yet, but
are we having rind tasters? What do y'all think of the rind? I'm gonna eat it now.
Kay Waynick, I don't know. Says
it's delicious.
A little bluey flavor.
The rind is delicious. Eat the rind. It almost has a bloomy, a little bit of a blue thing.
Mm-hmm.
The rind is exceptional. Love it.
Yeah, you can taste like the mold.
Cool texture too.
Yeah.
I'm tasting with some wine.
Earthy, musty, Bobby and Jean. Yeah. But in a good
Bobby
way.
And Jean, in a great way.
I think.
It tastes like
chalkier.
Cheese.
Rick and Sonia. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Chalky. I get that.
This one has gotten the most comments, which I guess you would expect. This is sort of the
and with the wine, it's beautiful.
Artisanal.
It's beautiful with the wine. Really beautiful.
Grassy and musty, says Anna Louisa Brooks.
All right. I'm in love with that cheese.
We've never had it before. You found this unique cheese. Is it the kind of thing that just doesn't get imported to the United States very often?
No. And when you can get it, you get it. And you get it, and then you can't get it for a while.
We might, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so usually what people ask at some point in the class is, are all of these available online to order more? Are they available in the stores? Yes. Is this particular one limited where it's going to be gone soon?
I would say there's two of these cheeses that we carry kind of as a pretty normally, and the rest were brought in especially for the class. So I would say if you love any one of these, they're all available online. And I'll send you all the link tomorrow in an email so you can go and get things from this class. But I would say for sure the Gestato, once that one's gone, it's going to be gone for a while. But it's, wow, delicious.
All right, Alex and Lauren and friends.
Alex and Lauren and friends.
One of the friend says the rind tastes like an aquarium smells. That's a little extreme.
It's a little extreme. Shall we move on to our last cheese?
I thought it was good.
It does. It has a kind of a mushroomy thing and kind of an earthy. It's delicious though.
Yeah.
I don't think of aquariums as smelling very good.
Sometimes they do.
Really?
I don't know. You walk
when they smell like chlorine.
No. You walk around the Baltimore Aquarium. It smells like the ocean. It smells like nature.
All right. Can we taste the next cheese?
Please.
Okay.
So right. They didn't say it was bad. No, I
didn't say it was good. No, it's fine. We're teasing. Okay. So the last cheese is very, very special. And I want you all to be as excited about this as I am. So this is a cheese called Bosqueto Al Tartufo. And if you have not already picked up this cheese and jammed it up next to your nose so you can smell it, please do, pronto. So Bosqueto Al Tartufo, it means grove of truffles. How fabulous is that? And it is made from primarily sheep's milk with a little bit of cow's milk thrown in to add to kind of the creamy butteriness of this cheese. Okay, it makes it have this nice, pliable, almost flexible type of texture. This cheese is made with both black summer truffles and also the ever elusive and ever expensive winter white truffles. Wow. So you almost never find cheeses made with white truffles because of their elusiveness and because of their expensiveness. But the Bosqueto is a very rare cheese for that reason, because they want really that highly aromatic quality, and yet they want the delicacy as well. And so it's a really, really special cheese. So this cheese is aged for just a couple months and has these beautiful, oh, Jeff, this is how much I love you. So look, I'm giving him the one with the truffle hunk in it.
That's probably because there's a white truffle in the other one that you're keeping for yourself.
There you go. You're welcome. So what you should expect from this cheese is a wonderful, creamy, supple quality. So you're going to be getting that richness of the sheep's milk, that nuttiness, but the addition of the cow's milk is going to add a buttery element that we will not necessarily have experienced in these other cheeses. And then, of course, there's the truffle. Oh my gosh, it smells so good.
Wow. Peter Quantock's 6-year-old says this is his or her favorite. That's awesome.
You have a very smart 6-year-old.
Right. The 6-year-old also ordered the Chateaubriand for dinner tonight. But
oh, that is absolutely beautiful. Let me taste with my wine.
It's excellent. Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. Oh, the wine with the truffles is fabulous. So one of the reasons I love this cheese, often when you hear that something is truffle anything, truffle this, truffle that, you prepare yourself for being like punched in the face with intense truffleitude. I find that this is, of course, it's truffly, but it's just so well balanced and well done. It doesn't punch you in the face. And I feel like the cheese paste itself is so flavorful and has such a beautiful texture that it works really, really well with the truffles without feeling like you're just getting a big face full of truffles. It's absolutely fabulous. This is a great eating cheese. This is also a great, if you want to grate it. It's relatively soft, so just be prepared. It's going to gum up your grater just a little bit, but worth it. Hello. And grate this on top of pasta with Parmigiano mixed in, and then this on top. You don't want to cook this one. So this is the advice I'll give you. Anything that has truffles in it, truffles are very, very sensitive to heat. And so you never want to expose them to high heat. You don't want to, for instance, stir the truffles in or the truffle cheese into your dish as you're heating it. You always want to do it off the heat and right at the last minute before you pop it into your mouth, because the heat will really break down the aromatics and the flavor of the truffles. So you really want to save your truffle element for the very, very end. You were chuckling at something.
Angela just went online and ordered 8 pounds.
Angela has now purchased all of the Bosqueto, so you can thank Angela. But it's outstanding. It really is. It's a very special cheese.
All right, Quanick says it's great with a little bit of honey, which I...
Oh, Peter, I love you. This is Peter Quanick, right?
I don't know. It's all lowercase Kway.
Oh, that's right. I thought you said there was also a Peter Quanick, and I got confused.
There was a Peter...
It doesn't matter. Sorry.
Quantock. This is Quanick.
Okay. Quanick. I'm sorry, Quanick. So I actually have a note here to mention, and I forgot.
It's Katie.
I'm sorry?
She just told me that her name is Katie.
Hi, Katie. So are we finished? So this, I actually have a note here, and I'm so glad that you said something, because if you have honey at home right now, time out, go get the honey, drizzle it on this cheese, and it is like, it's one of those culinary tasting experiences that you will never forget for your whole life. So seriously, pause before you eat this all up, get the honey. I don't care if it's a honey bear that you've got like for your kids' sandwiches. It doesn't need to be fancy, raw sourced honey. It can be, doesn't have to be. Drizzle it on this cheese. It is that transformative. In fact, if my cord weren't so short, I would walk into my pantry right now and get my honey, but I can't. It's that good. So try it with the honey for sure. Thank you, Katie, for that reminder. What do we think of the Bosqueto? Any questions about this cheese?
No, it seems like most people really are really enjoying it.
And if you want, you can certainly pair this with your olive tapenade. Why would you?
I'm actually going to ask you a question about this. So
yes,
we're coming up, not exactly, but soon on the holidays, and people have the cheese with like the cranberries in it and this and that.
Yep.
And it's good, but some people, the cheese snobs, I guess.
You mean like moi?
No, I don't think you really are. It would be like, nah, that's kitschy or whatever. Is the truffle cheese in that same category? Because I just find it so exceptionally good.
So do I. So believe it or not, there are people who don't love truffles. And for those of us that love truffles, for those of us who love truffles, we don't understand that. It would be when someone says to you, oh, I don't like chocolate. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? So if you don't love truffles, that's okay. But you're also not going to love truffle cheese. So there are lots of people who think that truffle cheeses, therefore, are some abuse of the senses, and they are just like these egregious, you know, kind of like over the top, hyper aromatic, unnecessarily decadent. Amen. Amen. Bring on the truffles. They're delicious. So yes, I would say there are some people who would look at a truffle cheese and say, oh, you're pandering. You're just pandering to the truffle loving masses. Like me, I love truffle cheeses, truffle tremor, Bosqueto, Pecorino with truffles. I don't care if it has truffles in it. I love it. It's delicious. But come holiday time, you will see a lot of flavorings within cheeses. Okay, so you'll see a lot of truffles, you'll see cranberries, you'll see pumpkin seeds. And these are all wonderful. These are wonderful opportunities to see how sort of outside flavors can amplify the flavors in our cheese. I say embrace it. There's no better time of year to experiment with really funky and cool cheeses that have different flavorings and things added to them. And it's just like anything with any food. Try it. And if you don't like it, don't eat any more of it. And if you like it, don't be ashamed that you like it. Eat it and love it. And don't listen to the haters, because there are actually cheese haters out there. I don't know what to say. There are. I've met them. Don't listen to them.
Snobs.
I'm sorry, I went off
Cheese
on my non-cheese snob rant. Don't be a cheese snob. Don't be an anything snob. Eat what tastes good to you.
That's a good point.
Any other questions, Jeff, before we talk about our next class?
Well, I'm going to make a question out of a comment somebody made. They said this is just by and far the best truffle cheese they've ever had.
Yeah.
And they've had a lot of truffle cheese. Yeah. I'm trying to remember who it was. They said they lived in Europe. Truffle cheese is everywhere. Yeah. Why is this so good?
Yeah. So I will tell you why this is so good. It is because it is the sheep's milk blended with the cow's milk. So before the truffle even enters the picture, you're getting all of the sweet nuttiness of the sheep's milk combined with the buttery, sort of long-lasting flavor impact of the cow's milk. Okay, and boom, you're blending those together. So right away, the paste of your cheese is something ethereal and fabulous. Then you're adding the truffles, but you're doing just enough of them to give it a beautiful scent and a beautiful flavor. And you're allowing them, because you're embedding them within the cheese as it ages, you're allowing those beautiful aromatics and flavors to really infuse throughout the cheese in a delicate and gradual way. It's not like you're putting just a layer of black truffle paste in the center of a cheese and you're like, oh my gosh, mind blown with the truffles, which by the way is delicious, but it's truffle intensive. This is, I would argue, is a more elegant approach to adding a truffle to a cheese. It's very expensive to do that though, because you have to have really great truffles. You can't use cheap, crappy ones. You have to have really good truffles that can go through the aging process. Because again, this cheese is aged for a couple months. So you're going to be putting your truffles in, and the fact that they're in there and they're interacting with all of those bacteria doing their magic, that's why it's so beautiful. It's like a delicate infusion as opposed to jamming a bunch of truffle paste on top of something.
Which is good too, though.
Which is good too.
All right. Now, that's a great answer to the question. As you were doing that though, and you had started earlier and said, this on the cheese, that on the cheese, stuff mixed in the cheese, enjoy it if you like it, whatever. Under the Tuscan Sheep started to troll you, and a few folks piled on and said, hey, how about that seaweed cheese from Ireland?
So I have to tell you something. It is not often that I say a cheese offended my senses. We had in the Irish cheese class, which was some of the greatest cheeses we've ever had in a class, except for one cheese that was, it's still like when I'm talking about it, it's like I have PTSD with
Sarah
this cheese.
and Eric say it was better than the Calabrese's Blue.
I don't know what to say. It was a cheese
it is an inside
with
joke.
Actual seaweed in it, and it tasted like seaweed and fish cheese to me. But I don't even like nori. I don't like sushi with the seaweed on it. I don't like flavors of. I like fish. I don't like seaweed. So seaweed in a cheese, I basically went back to the days when I had really bad morning sickness with each of my three children, and that's what it reminded me of.
Anyways.
And then I tasted the wine with it, and it was worse. So I will say that might be maybe the only cheese I've ever had that I was like, if I never have that cheese again, it will be too soon.
Well, what's interesting is
some people loved it. They were like,
a bunch of folks did like it. So anyways, it's also great that the regulars that have attended this class now for 18 months like to troll you. I think
you can troll away that seaweed cheese.
Pretty funny.
I feel like one day I'm going to wake up and walk outside my house and there's just going to be like a big block of it sitting out there with like a knife in the top, you know, like here. Yeah, the seaweed cheese was not my thing. It was not my thing. Couldn't do it.
All right.
So any other questions? Hello, little fruit fly. I'm going to kill you. Sorry, I just killed a thing on the camera on my dish towel. Sorry, y'all. I'm a fruit fly slaughterer. Okay.
Bring us home, Jill.
All right. So we're going to wrap up now. Yes, put the poll up. So one of the wonderful things about using Zoom is that we can put all 5 of our cheeses in the poll. So historically, we could only do 4 items in the poll. Now we can do all 5. This is your chance to weigh in on which cheese was your favorite. I will be honest, I found all of these cheeses delicious, but I'm interested to see which y'all thought was your favorite. So Jeff's got the poll up. Weigh in there. While you're doing your voting, I will tell you about our next class. May I? Okay. Our next class is a fall festival.
Oh,
yes. So excited. So we are doing a collection of 5 cheeses from all over the world that are fall inspired, autumn inspired. And when I say we've got some really cool ones, we have some really, really cool ones. So one of them, for instance, I ordered back in April and was made for us because I ordered it back in April.
So Liz's question before you said that was, are any of them super rare? I think that answers
made for us because I ordered it in April and they were like, oh, Cheesetique wants, well, like more than one, got a lot of them, but Cheesetique wants a good number of these and we'll make them. They'll be ready for you in 6 months. Can you believe that? It was the coolest thing ever. So whatever. So that's one of the 5 cheeses.
So fall festival, does that mean like cheeses covered in leaves?
So there's no leaves present in this one, but we have a truffle or 2. We have some pumpkin seeds.
Ooh,
we have some beautiful layered cheeses, which are going to be pretty fun. We have a hyper aged cheese, which is going to be exceptional. So it's not autumn or fall in sort of like a, here, I'm going to smack some dried leaves on something. It's really more cheeses of the season. One of the great things about autumn cheeses is they tend to be really, really uber flavorful because by the time you're eating them in the autumn, they were the cheeses that very often were made in the summertime from the milk that is the most flavorful and the most intense and rich. So when you eat autumn cheeses, you're kind of getting cheeses at their absolute peak of fineness. And that is what we're really going to be illustrating. So there's no leaf covered cheeses per se, but it is going to be an exceptional spectrum of cheeses. And like I said, just some really special stuff that we brought in for this. The class is already online. So if you go to our website store, like I'm sure you all have before, and you just click on events and videos, you will see it's called Fall Festival. I strongly recommend that you go ahead and sign up for that one early because the supply is limited. I only ordered so many of the very special cheese. And when I say it's gone, it's gone. Like that's it.
Lloyd and Marcia want to know, any triple creams?
Maybe.
I like that. All right.
Sure, Lloyd and Marcia, I don't seem to remember right now.
Okay, so I'm going to turn the poll off.
Yes. I think I can tell which would be the favorite in this one.
Right. So the more interest, given that, the more interesting question is, what's the second favorite?
Okay, so first favorite, I think, was obviously the Bosqueto.
All right, so I'm going to share the results.
So for the second favorite.
Yes, the Bosqueto was almost 50% of people picked that as their number one.
I'm not surprised. It's beautiful. It deserves it. It deserves it. I would say I love the Pecorino Gestato. I'm not sure that everyone would have loved it as much as I did. So I'm going to go for the 6-month Pecorino as being the number 2 choice.
So by far number 2 was the 3 months.
Oh, and fantastic.
The Pecorino Gestato almost didn't get on the scoreboard. I'm surprised. It was subtle though. Just subtle. It wasn't, it was, you had to kind of think about it.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. They don't, you can't win them all. But I love the Gestato. So you're saying the 3-month was this number 2. Mm-hmm. What was number 3? The 6-month and then the Pienza and then.
No, Pienza was 3.
Pienza was 3. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm not surprised. The Bosqueto it's that outstanding. We've carried this cheese for 17 years since we opened. So it's one of my favorites. It's one of our guests' favorites, no question about it. So as we talked about earlier, all of the cheeses and the wine are available online. So if you go to, again, the store and you click on events and videos, and then there's a little subsection there called items from recent classes or something, you'll see them right there at the top of the list. So go ahead and grab those while you can. I'm going to send an email to you tomorrow with a link to that. So if you're like, what did she just say? Don't worry about it. I'll send you a link. It will also have a link to our next class. It will have a link to our next wine dinner for those of you that want to be part of those events. And we are shipping again for our next class. So if you have friends in other parts of the country, family, and you want to kind of do the class together, it's a great way to do that. You can participate at the same time and actually be eating the same cheeses.
And the feedback, really, and actually that was pretty neat. Maya and her parents, I'm forgetting what her parents.
Chesson, yes.
Yeah. So they were like texting each other separate, not on the chat, but and they're both, I can't remember which cheese it was. They like instantaneously like crossed in the wires between Denver and here. Like, oh my God, this is the best cheese. So
that's amazing. I'm so glad, Maya. I'm so very glad.
And the feedback, at least here, where maybe people are going to be a little kinder in the chat, but it was that the shipping was great and it arrived perfectly. Great. If anybody has any negative feedback, send us.
Let me know now so that we can fix it for next time. I am not a delicate flower. Don't be like, I hate you, but send me if something didn't look great, if it wasn't perfect, let me know now and we will try and do it better next time. We will be shipping the kits again next time. So as we're getting ready for the autumn season, the fall festival class is going to be amazing. The wine is awesome.
And the next wine dinner, speaking of wine, is next week.
Tuesday.
And there's a few more seats, probably.
There's a few more seats in our Piedmont. So if you love anything Italian, the Piedmont wine dinner with a winemaker called Vietti. So Piedmont is the far north of Italy. We're doing Vietti, one of the most esteemed winemakers. 5 of their amazing wines that you cannot get your hands on.
Beautiful bottles too. The drawings.
Beautiful bottles, yes, and 5 amazing courses, and there will be truffles as well. So definitely get on there and sign up. But I'll send you the link for that tomorrow.
Awesome.
All right, that's all I got.
Thanks,
I
everybody.
hope you all have a most wonderful evening. Thank you for being here with us again. It is an honor to be eating cheese with you wherever you happen to be right now. So we will see you in 2 weeks from tonight, I hope, at the Fall Festival class.
Awesome. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.